My name is Marumbo Sichinga. My middle name is Kenneth. I have a feeling some people say that in the audience. My middle name is Kenneth. Fun fact. I am a spoken word artist. I'm a poet. I write. And I'm very excited that all of you could be here today. Thank you very much for coming and gracing us this afternoon. A big thank you to all the other artists that accepted my invite to come and share their work with us this afternoon. And I get a round of applause for Dice, Della, and Timothy. I'm going to be kicking us off this afternoon by reading you some poetry and drinking tea in between. I'm currently working on a book, a poetry compilation that I've been writing for the past 5 years. The time I've spent writing it is no reflection on the quality of the work, but bear with me. And I hope to share a few poems from that book with you this afternoon. I'm also toying with the idea of making it an audiobook. So like this is practice of what the book would sound like if it was like an audio version. They're also short poems, so yada, 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 yada. All right, first poem. Our hearts are hands, groping in the dark, feeling for a naked love. Our hearts are friends with a blind man, seeing everything that truly matters. Our hearts are sacred tools of discovery. Thank you. I wrote this next poem, for a girl I had a crush on. Some poems don't have titles, they just have backstories. Like most people. The thing I love the most about you is that you are human after all. The first time I met you, you seemed more made of stardust than clay. I wondered how this lost star found its way into my solar system because I can be so much of a black hole. I fought very hard not to call you an angel. I gazed at you. I fought very hard not to worship you. I made a wish. I said a prayer. I saw your face. I counted your beauty marks. And the trail of the empty promises left behind when you shot through the sky. You know you are a different kind of beautiful when you have at least 3 beauty marks, and even your scars complement your features. They fell and tell all the hurt you leave behind with the promises that were made in vain. Somehow you are like your afro. You know a thing or two about being free, about being in space, escaping black holes and play, and being human, because the thing I love the most about you is that you are human after all. Thank you. Courage. I still haven't mastered the courage to kiss you in front of your mama's house. But I know that she knows that you know that I know the taste of your lips and the things your tongue can do. She knows everything because moms always know. Thank you. I couldn't keep writing that poem. My mom would have disowned me. There's a few things I'd like to say that she doesn't have to. I wonder what it's like when you guys read poetry. Sorry, this is a part of like the night where afternoon where I ask you questions. Well, when you read a poetry book, how does it sound to you? It's an actual question. It's not rhetoric. Does someone want to share? What does it sound like when you read a poetry book to you? Weird. What does it sound like to you, Dan?
You mean in my head or when
In your head, yes. Preferably.
Preferably.
Yes.
Well, what I try to do,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe this is selfish, but I do try to read them out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you read them out loud enough, it starts to feel like you wrote it, and you get to feel like you see the choices they made, and you start to feel the emotions, even if you don't fully understand them. And when you can start to try and almost write it down by memory, it's like you're in the moment of creating it, and you can step into the other person's
Thoughts and
experience.
feelings. Thank you, Dan. A short poem That's more like a sentence than an actual poem. I'm not sure how it happens, but you wake up one day, it hurts a little less, and you are ready to love again. That's it. Another sentence that should have just stayed a sentence but turned into a poem, I guess. On the 11th of April 2022, I scribbled down what I wanted. A slightly long list of different things that ended with this one want: greener pastures that didn't hurt my soul. Thank you. When I was editing this book, or what hopefully will be a book, I realized I had a lot of poems that were about death. Partly because I experienced a lot of death, but also because where I'm from, we rarely talk about death. It's like one of those things that happens, but like you're supposed to just like throw it under the rock and like almost pretend it doesn't happen until it happens again. And so I'd like to read you a poem about death. The last time I mourned, death took no pity on me. It didn't stop to hear my cries, it just carried on and took another that I loved. My friend died today. These words feel like a sledgehammer, a punch in the face, a bad dream, an out-of-body experience. I have experienced death too many times to not know that it is real, to know that it has no pity on me. And yet knowing this doesn't stop me from praying that maybe this time my friend has somehow managed to escape the hands of death. That maybe the bus to heaven was late. That the Reaper wasn't waiting on the other side to take them from earth, that maybe we won't have to ask death, where is your sting? Because I know that the Reaper isn't a beekeeper, just a devil in disguise, an angel with the lies. And now I am scrambling, offering condolences to loved ones and them offering condolences back, because we have all lost and death has seemingly won. My friend died yesterday. And today I am expected to live on. My friend died and death took no pity on me again. Thank you. It's always hard segueing from a poem about death. A poem that I wrote for my friends. After a while, I decided that home would be the people I loved. Not the place, not the time, just the people. She said, we mustn't make homes out of people. I replied, no, we mustn't make shrines out of people. Humans aren't designed to be worshipped. They are more home than they are temples. I tend to lean towards fixing things, no matter how broken. I have learned that not everyone goes through life doing the same. If I had a shop, I would put a sign, you break, you pay. The rule would apply to everything. My heart, this body, your promises, me. You break, you pay. Sometimes I find myself walking through a line mine of your red flags, gaslighting myself that this time will be different. Ignoring the signs after the words of your actions have left behind everything that was left unsaid, I have decided that the sign in the shop will now have to read, you break, I pay. This rule will apply to everything. My heart, this body, your promises, me. You break, I pay. My last poem before I call up the next act, and I'm gonna do some actual poems later on. It's a short poem that I wrote called A Happy Poem. I wrote a happy poem because rumor has it poets only write when they're sad. I scribbled your silhouette under the sun and your shadow kept me warm. I smiled at death because this is a love to die for. Thank you. eyes closed, I'm trying to find you. The real you. Embedded in the depths of your soul, understand that what my eyes can't see, my heart shall feel. What my mind doesn't understand, my soul shall know, making sense of what truly is real. And I know that love is blind, but that even it can see that you and me were meant to be. So baby, if I ask you to stay, would you please? And I understand that the last man that you trusted to lead your path was a pathological liar, hell-bent on trying to use your trust as a rope to pull himself out of his misery. He came mighty close to draining the truth and life out of you, but you persevered. You came out stronger, so trust me. A drunk man seldom tells a lie, and I lie if I ever say that I'm sober, and so far you are my choice of drink. And so be my spirit, mix with my blood as you run through my vessels, past this heart that is rooms filled with baggage left by past mistakes and lovers that should have just remained friends. Up to my mind to make me understand that sometimes perfection is only a stone's throw away. So even though I'm never in the right frame of mind to tell, but what I can tell in great detail is how much I want you to stay. Because often we go through hoops and loops for each other, trying to complete the circle of life by never dying to ourselves. And it's become our custom to fill our lips with poison, so that every time that we kiss, we make acts of betrayal. We become each other's Judas, hanging our souls on trees, hoping that our bodies decompose and soil the ground where we had planted that seed of emptiness, hoping that that seed grows into a big, beautiful tree. You see, the darker the berry, the sweeter the juice. We made beautiful music each time we ate of the forbidden fruit, feeling like this was needed. But this was no garden, and so there were no trees. We lived in a concrete jungle, her and I, with the simple truths that we had exchanged for the lies. And so herein lies the moral of this story. While I'm out here trying to get this money, baby, would you please stay? I wish I could sing. I would have sang for you. I wrote this poem on the back of a motor. There I was, fully fixated on my phone on the back of a motor, weaving in and out of traffic, almost being hit and dying. Okay, maybe not dying, I'm a little dramatic, but before I caught myself wondering how I could trust this man I just met like literally 2 minutes ago, with like literally my whole life, when it usually takes me longer than 2 months to trust people with my heart and fall in love, and just as long or even longer to make friends or to trust them. And I know that that was a lot of likes, but I dislike always wondering what people's motives are, why they do what they do. And so I decided to put my phone back in my pocket and hold on to this bike for dear life. Then it dawned on me that fear is no driving force for bikes or life or the will to live. So I decided that I would trust this man that I just met like literally 2 minutes ago, because good people exist. And you know this because once in a while you are a good person too. And so I proceeded to write this poem about trust and friendship and safety, and how in Rwanda you can pull out your phone and write a poem on the back of a bike and not worry too much about it being stolen. Because guns exist and prison time is long, but mainly because good people exist. And you know this because once in a while you are a good person too. And so I wrote this poem in the hope that maybe at the end of this ride, the motor driver and I would be friends, and he would wonder why I questioned him in the first place. that maybe one listener of this poem wouldn't have to remind me that bad people exist, that I shouldn't be so liberal with my trust, and that they know this because once in a while they too are a bad person. But that maybe they were missing the point. That just because people hurt us doesn't mean that we should live life like everyone will. And that some Smiths might slap you once in a while for a bad joke doesn't mean that life can't be funny that sometimes. And that doesn't negate the fact that God has a sense of humor, and as rumor has it, you are one of his favorites, so you mustn't put him to the test. So I put my phone back in my pocket, held on to this bike, this time not for dear life or lack of trust, but out of respect for the good that God brings my way and my general respect for speed and when skin touches the tar. Thank you. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I was writing a poetry book and I realized a lot of the poems were about death because I'd experienced a lot of death and hadn't processed it. And writing poetry is one of the ways that I process. So this next poem is a poem about death. This poem is about death and resurrection and the belief that I could be something more. Sometimes you act in a manner that you think people will most accept you, and so you lie and pretend and pretend and pretend, such that the line between truth and lie is almost blurred and you have forgotten who you are. Did you morph into something else? Did you become a butterfly? Did you learn to fly? One of my friends died in a car crash. The car was choked full of college students drinking, driving, partying, living fast. The car crashed. My friend died. My friend who was driving the car died then and there too. He lost his sense for life. We buried our friend and pretended to live. A couple years later, after New Year's, one of my friends went on a bender, as he was known to do. So none of us panicked or worried until 5 days later we hadn't heard from him. We put out a call to see if we could find him, and 5 days later his body was found under a bridge, dead, gone, but not forgotten. We buried our friend and pretended to live. When this friend died, I told myself that I would have to do a better job of checking up on my friends to make sure that they weren't just living but were alive. And so we kept on pretending, being the people that our families expected us to be. I put on a show for my father and mother. I put on a show for my girlfriend. I put on a show for my friends. I did all the things that I thought would make them like me. Wouldn't you do the same? A couple years later, after we had all been pretending, my friend who was driving the car that crashed and my friend died in decided that he was going to stop pretending. And so he hanged himself. We buried our friend and pretended to live. When this friend died, I told myself that I would no longer carry the burden of carrying the deaths of my friends. That part of me died too. You see, when you experience death, things like being liked, things like pretending, things like death no longer matter to you. That part of you dies too. Recently, my high school friend robbed a bank, successfully might have had. He drove his bike to the bank branch, fired a couple shots in the air, told the teller to put the money in the bag, told everyone to hit the floor. He stole 12 million, ran outside, and as fate would have it, his bike wouldn't start. The mob chased him. He was wearing a mask. He carried a pump shotgun. He fired a couple shots in the air. He was definitely acting, pretending to be okay. He ran. The mob chased him. They stoned him to death. They stole the money that he stole. How poetic. There was no longer time for him to continue to pretend. He ran out of lines and credits. We buried our friend and pretended to live. When this friend died, I told myself that death is an insatiable beast that would take and take but not find its place in my heart. And so one day I will be brave enough to not pretend, brave enough to accept that I am not okay. But until then, I just want to be okay. Thank you. Do you ever sit and watch the sunset while drinking your chai tea and wonder what life would have been like if you were bold enough to accept me? And I, not scared of repeating past mistakes and crazy enough to get over my ex, and you willing to grow old with me, and I willing to accept that I would always be second to your first love. And I learning not to take that personally, even though personal it is. Do you wonder what life would have been like if we translated those 5-hour phone calls to 50 years of marriage and bond and practice and submission to one another forever and happily forever afters and sunsets and sunrises? Do you wonder if distance would have gotten in the way? Or would it have been time? I wonder if you forced yourself to let go because I wasn't worth the wait. I wonder if anyone will ever be worth your wait or your wow. I wonder if you crack the hidden messages in my poems, if you still smile. I wonder if this poem is selfish, or if it's a catharsis, a final burying place, a coulda, shoulda been tomb, the catacomb, that catalyst effect that brought about that Damien Jr. Gong Marley song, a reminder not to live life in a rush. The past cannot be returned to. Be proud of owning up. The truth will never hurt you, and the truth is, I almost died this year. Death and flying will give you a perspective that you haven't seen before. They remind you that time is fleeting and that the earth is not our home, and so you should never be stuck in the past when the present is a gift. And so I stop wondering and start to hope that your present is everything and more, that you are just as whole without me as you would have been with me, and that everything happened for a reason, and that it will be okay, and that chai tea isn't bad after all, even though I prefer chombe, and that maybe we were a heartbreak waiting to happen, and that's okay. And it's okay that we will never know, but what if? Thank you so much for being such a wonderful audience. I'm going to do my last poem, and we're going to call it an afternoon. Before I finish, I want to say another big thank you to everyone that was on this stage that performed. Can I please get a round of applause for Dice the Kid, Dila Dube, Timothy Wandulu, and Elizabeth Jeanette. A round of applause for the good people at Cafe Envision for being such lovely hosts. And a round of applause for yourselves for being here. Thank you very, very much. Quintessential poet that I am, I also wrote this poem for someone that I loved. I want to love you the same way the moon loves the sun. Day in and day out, through the times and the seasons, even in the moments where you give me no reason. I want to love you even when we go old and I develop that bag under my eye and you start believing my lies. Our love story will be a story told of how a fierce, fiery, gaudy phenomenon became the centerpiece of my space. I want to know the heights with which I can love you, like Egyptians building pyramids to worship the sun. You are a goddess and I am the son of the sun, so our love story must have been written in the stars by the very hand of God. My friend Anna, she's sitting over there, she tells me that ever since I met you, my face seems to be glowing. I told her it was probably because I was reflecting your beauty, mimicking the moon as it reflects the sun. Or maybe it's because I get nervous around you and I sweat a lot. Or maybe it's because of the Vaseline blue seal. Or maybe it is because I am the moon to your shine. I am what the priest used to predict the falling of the rain, the love tears from the gods that water the earth to bring about life. You see, loving you will be nothing short of a rain dance. I wanted to know all the ways with which I could love you, and so love sometimes can be the room of a 14-year-old who doesn't have anything in his place, but if you ask him, he will tell you that he knows exactly where everything is. I made a mess of love, but if you had asked me, I would have told you that I know exactly where everything is. And love isn't always tidy, and so I kept my hair uncombed throughout the months of January and February. Even though I looked and bathed, I kept it so as a token of my love for you, and your love drove me to a desert. And I lived off the sweet honey voice notes and the locust swarm of the pictures that we took in my phone. And I nicknamed myself John because I am a Baptist after all, and you are like the river Jordan. So I came to you so I could plunge myself beneath the flood of your care, so that I could learn to die to myself and then learn to love you again. I want to love you the same way hair food loves nappy hair, in a nurturing and caring kind of way. so that maybe your nappy hair can grow into a dreadlock and we can break the deadlock of loving badly. I badly want to love you even when you grow bold and decide to cut your dreadlock off. I want to be bold enough to love you even then. I want to love you the same way a mother loves a child. And just for the record, my mother likes you, and if you know anything about her, she doesn't like everyone. I want to love you the same way the watchmen love to see the dawn. The same way government officials in Malawi like to see 4 on the clock, because to them it is a sign that they are going home. You are what I think about when I hear the words home. The sound of the TV left on, the soft caressing of the carpet floor, the drip in the sink that needs fixing, the calling of my mother in the corridor, the slamming of my little sister's door, the softness of my bed, the whistling of the leaves outside, the barking of the dog, the closing of the gate. You are what I think about when I hear the words home. I wanted to know all the ways with which I could tell you that I loved you, so I signed up for some Swahili, Tumbuka and Kenya and Rwanda classes so that I could learn them, so that in them I could tell you how much I want to love you. But still I felt that that wasn't enough, so I connived with the sun, the moon and the stars, so that every day and night you would look up and read a poem written by me of how much I want to love you. But still I felt that that wasn't enough, so I bribed the air, so that with each breath that you take you would inhale me and exhale a poem written by me of how much I want to love you. I want to love you as abruptly as this poem ends. Thank you very much for making it here on an Easter Sunday, even with the rain, for bearing through all of that. Thank you so much for being such a wonderful audience. You guys have made my afternoon very, very, very special. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Feel free to stick around, have a look at Timothy's art, buy a drink. I'm usually by the bar buying shots if I'm really happy. So if you find me there, come have a shot with me. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.